Hello and welcome to this webinar. My name is Bree. I'm going to be going over a few helpful tips with you today in Photoshop and CorelDraw. Alright, so the topics I will be going over with you today. In Photoshop we will go over how to remove backgrounds, how to cut out hair, adjusting dark photos. In CorelDraw we will go over vector versus raster, how to trace raster logos and make them vector. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, I'm going to start with you today by showing you how to effectively remove backgrounds that are solid photos. Some of the tools you can use are the pen tool, polygon lasso, magic eraser, background eraser, and magnetic lasso tool. Today I'll be going over the magic eraser and the magnetic lasso tool with you. We always want to start by duplicating your layer. You don't want to work on your original photo. Just in case you were to make any accidents, you can still achieve by working with that original. So we're going to click and hold that thumbnail and drag him to the new layer button, and it'll duplicate it for you. Otherwise, if it's easier for you, you can right click on that original layer and select duplicate layer. It'll achieve the same effects. So now that you duplicated your layer, you want to turn off that original photo just to ensure you are unable to access and alter that photo. And then you're going to make sure to click on that background copy. I'm going to first start by showing you how to use the magic eraser tool. So that'll be located where your regular eraser tool is, and you have all these different tools to work with in that same selection. How to access that is you click that button and you hold down, and then that window will pop up accessing those other tools for you. So you want to make sure you're on that magic eraser tool. And something to keep in mind about this tool, you want to make sure you're on a low tolerance. If you have a high tolerance, it can take out more of the photo than you want, and I'll show you the different versions of what to avoid and what to properly do. So once you're at a low tolerance, that's basically selecting the pixels, colors that you're clicking on, and it'll select in the area of the photo around it and delete it out for you. So as you can see, it was super simple. It basically did all the work for you. Let's show you what would happen if you had a high tolerance. So the high tolerance would actually access the pixels you're selecting and choosing more of it throughout the photo. So if you had a high tolerance, it's going to choose more of that sample throughout the entire piece. So if I'm going to click on this, you'll notice that it removed some of that white in that watermelon, and we don't want that to happen. So just keep in mind when removing solid backgrounds with this tool, you want a low tolerance to select the area, pixels and colors that you select in that area, not the entire piece. So low tolerance, 10 is a good rule of thumb for this tool. So that's how to use the magic eraser tool. And now I'm going to show you how to use that magnetic lasso tool. So like the magic eraser, it is under your regular lasso tool. You would just, again, hold and click that button to pop up that window to access those other tools. So we're going to make sure that magnetic lasso tool is selected. And basically, this works a lot like the pen tool. It creates points and paths to create your selection. The difference between that and the pen tool, you'd actually have to make the points and the paths and the curves yourself. But this will actually do all the work for you. So it makes it super simple. This is best for, again, solid backgrounds because it selects the high contrast between the different pixels. So if I click here to get started, it'll recognize the difference between our dark pixels to our light pixels, and it'll automatically select around our image for us. You want to, every now and again, click to cause a locked-in anchor point, and that'll ensure that it'll be locked in and not getting off path. See, as you can see, if you get off path, you just have to click delete and hover over your point to remove it out. by doing those anchor points, it'll help prevent this from happening. So you don't have to do it all the time. You just have to do it every now and again to prevent the getting off track. So I'm just going to lay a little anchor point down, and as you can see, for the most part, it keeps me in line with the object. So you can get a little bit off. It's pretty forgiving, and just layering your solid anchor points every now and again. Oops, see, I got a little off track, so I'm going to go delete and remove him. It's pretty simple. It's a lot easier than using the pen tool. You'd have to physically create each point that we're creating. As you can see, there's a lot of different points and a lot of different curves, so it's a lot less time consuming. And when you get back to your original point, it'll cause what I call marching ants around your image. This is showing you the selection that it created, and it's selected over the watermelon right now. So say, for instance, you wanted to access the background later for whatever reason, and you didn't want to permanently erase that white part of the image. You can click on this layer mask tool, and it'll mask out that white space, but not delete it forever. So you can see it created this layer mask, and you can later access that information if needed. Otherwise, if you just wanted to delete that information, you can see that it's currently selecting the watermelon. Well, we don't want to actually delete the watermelon. We want to delete the white space. So you'll just have to go under Select, Inverse, and that'll cause the selection to be on the white space around the piece. And you can just simply hit Delete, and it'll remove that information for you. So those are two ways to remove solid backgrounds very easily and very effectively. I'm going to next go over how to naturally remove backgrounds from hair and still have that natural look of the original state of the hair. So again, you want to first start by duplicating that layer. So I'm going to grab that thumbnail and drag it over the new layer tool. And you can see I made that duplicate. Otherwise, again, you can right click, duplicate layer, it'll do the same effect. So I'm going to turn off that original layer and make sure I'm on that background copy. And when we're doing the specific way I'm showing you today, we're going to be working with the channels. So you want to open up your channel windows. You can see I just have the layer window opened right now. So you're going to go under Window, select Channels, and that'll pop open that window for you. You can see it displays each value, the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black used to create her image. So we're going to actually select through each of these layers to find the one in black and white that has the most contrast, the one that shows the best of her hair and her features. So I'm just going to select each channel and see which one I like the best. And I'm going to say the black layer demonstrates the quality of her hair and the features of her face the best. So I actually don't want to work on the original. I'm going to want to make another duplicate of this channel. So you can do the same thing as the layers, pull it over the new channel, or you can do that right click and duplicate channel. So make sure that your eye is on that copy, showing that it's the one that's visible and the one that's selected. So you're going to make sure that black copy is selected. And now we need to add a little more contrast to this photo, differentiate the difference between the black and the white a little more strongly. So we're actually going to be messing with the levels today to bring out those values. So all you have to do is make sure you're selected on that copy, go under Image, Adjustments, and select Levels. And as you can see, this window will pop up. This is how you're going to control the different values. You can mess with the bars, and you can see they do different things for you. To the left, we'll mess with the dark values. To the right, we'll mess with the light values. You can also mess with the channels this way, but I'm going to actually mess with the bars to add the contrast. And I'm going to say around 70 is probably good for the darks. And I'm going to say about here would be good for the white values. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. And now that we have the contrast, we want a selection to be made based off of the contrast in value between the whites and the darks. So I am actually going to hold Control and click on the thumbnail of that channel. If you are on a Mac, you want to hold Command. So either Command or Control, and you're going to click the thumbnail of that channel, and you can see your marching ants came back again. That indicates you have the selection on that specific area. And then we're going to go back to our layers. Make sure you're on that copy layer again. And we want to mask out that background. Like I was telling you earlier, this will hide the background so you can access it later, and it's not permanently erasing that for you. And that's exactly what we want to achieve right now. So we're going to hit that Add a Mask layer. As you can see, we were currently selected on her hair and the features of her face. We actually want the opposite. So I'm just going to make sure this mask is selected. This is where the mask was created. And I'm going to click on that thumbnail. I'm going to go under Image, Adjustments, and then you're going to select Invert. And you can see it pulled back her hair and the features of her face. But as you can also see, she's now translucent. But since we made that layer mask and we were able to access the information and reveal it again, we just have to make sure you're selected on that layer mask, and we're going to draw her back in. So you actually just need to click on your regular brush tool, and you can draw her back in. If you look at this thumbnail, you can see there's white to black ratio. The black will erase the information, and the white will draw back in. So using your foreground and your background colors, you want to be able to draw her in and remove any information that's unnecessary. Easy way to alternate between the colors is by clicking X, and you can move easily between foreground and background instead of having to individually click on the color and select the value that you want. So easy X alternates between foreground and background. Right now I actually want to draw her back in, so you're going to make sure you're on white. That will draw back in the information. I'll kind of show you what's going on there. So you can see it's drawing her face back in. You can also look at the physical mask layer by holding Alt and clicking on that mask thumbnail, and that will show you the values. So that white is everything that's drawn in, and the black is everything that's hidden. So you can go in and draw this way. Sometimes it's easier to draw actually viewing the mask. And I think in this case though, I'm going to be working on her original photo to make sure I get all of her hair and all of her skin in properly. So you just hold Alt and you'll click on that masking layer one more time, and that will hide that information again. So now I can just actually see my results that are happening. You can see all that information getting drawn back in. So I'm just going to do a quick draw over her for time's sakes for this webinar. But when you're working on your photos, you're going to want to really fine-tune it and make it look really nice. I'm going to actually be on the soft brush. Just draw her back in as best as you can. And another simple trick, if you're using the brush tool, if you click, hold Shift, and you click in another spot, it'll make straight lines for you. So I just clicked, I am holding Shift, and you click in a different spot, it'll make a straight line for you. So that's a nice, fun, easy trick to always use. Okay, I'm going to say that this looks nice, and I'm going to move on. But again, you're going to want to spend a little bit of time making it look nice. Okay, now that she's drawn in, I'm going to show you what's going on in the background with her hair. So I'm just going to click on this original to be under the one we're working on, and click on New Layer to create a new layer under her. As you can see, this is a translucent layer. We can fill it with whatever we want. I'm just going to fill it with a solid color, and I'm just going to do this purple, but you can click on the color and choose whatever color you wish. And then I'm going to select this paint bucket tool, and you can hold and click and view all the different tools you can work with, but I'm just going to use that paint bucket and fill a solid color. And now that I've filled that solid color, you can see a little bit better what's going on with her hair. You can see this like little white, kind of yellowish haze around her hair. We don't want that. We want it to look natural, like her natural hair. And now that the solid background is there, you can also see this is a little bit white from when I was drawing her back in. I'm going to fix that up real quick and go back to my layer mask, click on my brush tool, and I'm going to remove that. So this time we want to be on black. I'm going to click X to get to that black. I'm just going to draw out that so that's not a white haze. Okay, I'm going to say that's good. And now to get rid of that haze around her hair, we're actually going to use the stamp tool today. And when we're using the stamp tool, you actually want to make sure you're selected on the photo. The stamp tool is located just below the brush tool. You're going to click on that guy. And what this does is sample different parts of the photo, and wherever you draw, it will place that sample that you just created. So to make a sample, we're going to hold Alt and click on a place of her hair that we want to use. And I'm going to show you kind of what's happening. I'm going to do this on a different layer though. I don't want to work off of the girl. I want to work on a translucent layer. So I just clicked the new layer button and that created a new layer above. So I'm kind of show you what's going on. So this is kind of what happens with the stamp tool. It's taking the information where the plus sign is and putting it where your brush is. And you can just draw with that information. And you can see that looks really silly. But we're basically drawing over this white haze around her hair and pulling information from her hair to make it darker and make it visible. If you were to put a solid color over this, it would look silly and fake. So since we're actually sampling her real hair, it'll look more realistic. And in the end, it's not going to look like this. We're going to actually want to overlay this onto the girl and her cutout hair. So to do that, you'll hold Alt, click in between the girl and the layer we're working on, and you're going to click on the line in between. As you can see, what we're drawing now is now overlaid on the cutout we just made. So it looks a little more natural. And that's how you're going to want it in the end. You're going to want to have it overlaid onto the actual cutout of her hair. And you can already tell the difference from the left to the right. All that white is gone, and now it looks like her natural hair. And you can still see that haze. So I'm going to go through and fix that on this side just by sampling pieces of her hair. So you can see I'm kind of drawing over her skin a little bit. As long as you're selected on the layer above the girl, you can go ahead and erase that information. Get rid of that. Okay, I'm going to say that's good enough. And now you can see her hair has that natural look without that glow. And it's not that straight cut. You can still see the frizzy, so it looks way more natural than if you were to remove those little extra pieces of hair. I'm actually going to put this on a different layer style. You can, depending on your photo, you might have to mess with the different settings. Each of these settings do different things to your end result. I'm going to say that the darken will actually be good for this particular hair color, but you can mess with the different settings. It'll do different things for you. So as you can see, that was probably not the best choice for this one, so I'm just going to stick with the darken. And you can also mess with the translucency of the layer too if you wanted to by moving the bar. But yeah, so this is her final piece. You can see the hair looks so much better than it did originally. No haze around it. And now you can add in whatever background you wish. So I'm actually just going to put in a blue background. And you're going to want to make sure that that layer is under her. So you can just grab that thumbnail, drag it under her, and there you go. Now I'm going to make it big enough. And it turns out pretty nice. Here's the after, here's the before. Makes a huge difference. But yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the next tutorial. This is working with dark photos. So you can see this photo I'm starting with is really dark. A lot of the information in the shadows is kind of lost. I want to bring that information back. So again, first step you want to do is duplicate that layer. So you're going to grab that thumbnail, drag him on that new layer, or again you can right click, duplicate layer, it does the exact same thing. So turn off that original, click on your copy. And this one's actually super simple. You basically just do this out of a window in Photoshop. So you go under Image, Adjustments, Highlights and Shadows, and this is where you control all of your settings. Every photo is going to be different because depending on the lighting, depending on the shading, you're going to have to mess with the different bars. So yours will not match this photo. You'll just have to play with these bars and find the best settings for the photo that you're working with. As you can see, each of these bars messes with different levels of the photo. So you'll just have to find the settings best made for you. I actually have these written down and ready to go for you, so I'm just going to plug those in real quick. You can already tell it's starting to brighten up. Okay, so this is how it looks now, and you can watch the before. So that's before, and that's after. Pulled out a lot more detail, and it brought in a lot more saturation even in all the flowers and the items in the picture. Say for some reason it wasn't exactly what you wanted still, you can still mess with some more settings. You can go to Image, Adjustments, mess with the brightness contrast. You can mess with that and just find the best settings for you. I'm just going to leave it because I like the contrast of this one. And you can also mess with like the saturation. This one I think could use a little bit more saturation. I'm going to do like 15. Say that's good to bring out the flowers and the details. But yeah, you can even desaturate it if you wanted to. It's all up to you. So there's a lot you can play with in Photoshop. But I think I'm going to say this is my final piece. So it turned out really nice. And again, I'm going to show you the before and after. So this is what it looked like before. And this is what it looks like after. It looks amazing. It looks like a completely different photo. So it's amazing what you can do. And most of that was just out of that highlights and shadow tab. So it's amazing what something as simple as that can do. I'm going to move on to our next one. And that was telling you the difference between vector versus raster. Okay. So I have a little dog here. I'm going to zoom in on him so you can see him a little better. So this here would be considered a raster photo. Raster is basically a bitmap, and it's composed of pixels. The measurement of raster is dots per inch. So meaning inch by inch, how many dots, how many pixels are composed of this picture. This particular picture is actually 300 dpi, and that is pretty much your standard for your best quality photos. That's your minimum of what you want your photo to be is 300 dpi, 300 dots per inch. Anything lower than that starts to get hazy, starts to get blurry. So you want to make sure right from the start you want to have a good quality photo. I'm going to zoom in and show you what's going on. So you can see these different points, and if you zoom in even more, you can start to see the pixels that compose of this picture. So if I were to go through and individually count these dots, there would be 300 little squares that make up an inch by inch of this photo. So when working with raster, it's really hard to size them. You want to have, again, at least a 300 dpi photo to work with, but even then you really don't want to expand it any bigger, because once you start messing with the size of this photo, you're going to start to lose the value in the end. The pixels are going to be more prominent, and it's going to start to look hazy. So try to stick with the original size of your photo and try to have at least a minimum of 300 dpi to have a good quality raster photo. I'm going to show you what a vector is now. So this bottom one, this bottom dog, is your vector photo, and this is the raster version of it. I'm going to zoom in on him, and you can see the huge difference. So when I zoom in on him, all my lines are crisp. A vector is a mathematically formulated image. It's composed of points and paths, so no matter how small you make it, no matter how big you expand it, it'll always be crisp to the eye. So I'm zoomed in on his collar right now. I'm going to show you what it looks like on the raster image to really show you the difference. So I'm going to zoom in the same spot on this raster photo, and you'll see it lost its value. It's very pixelated and it's very hazy. So when working with logos, when working with text, it's best to work with vector. So that way, no matter how you size it, it'll always be crisp in the end. So I'll kind of show you, say for some reason you get sent a lot of artwork and you don't really know how to tell the difference if it's a vector photo that you can expand and condense, or if it's a raster photo where you should leave it the same size. You can go under View, Wireframe, and it'll show you what that photo is made out of. So the top one was our raster one, meaning it's dots per inch. If you zoom in on him, you can tell he's a grayscale, and you can see all the pixels that compose of that picture. If you go down to the vector image, you can see he's made up of lines. That's the points and paths that compose of that vector image. And no matter how large, how small you make it, it'll always be true to its original state, which is amazing. So that's the best thing to do with logos and text, just to make it a vector piece. I'm going to kind of show you what to do if you only ever get raster images from your customers and they send you a lot of logos that aren't very good quality, that aren't very crisp, and you want to be able to condense it and expand it however you want, and you want it to be a vector image. You can actually create a vector image in CorelDraw out of a raster. I'm going to show you the difference between these two. So the top lion is 72 dpi, meaning 72 dots per inch of this photo, and the one below it is 300 dpi. Since I zoomed in on it, you can see they're both already kind of getting a haze around them. But if we create it into a vector, you can do with whatever you want with the sizing. So all you have to do is make sure you're selected on that original raster photo. You're going to go under Bitmaps, and you're going to find Outline Trace, Detailed Logo. And this will allow you to vectorize it. As you can see, this is the end result. Since it's a 72 dpi photo, it kind of had a hard time picking out all that information. So you lost the value in its eyes and you lost the value in the text. When it comes to a 72 dpi photo with text in it and you're trying to vectorize it, the best thing to do is just to delete out that text when you're done and actually typing it in again and putting it in its place. Because you can see it did a lot of strange things to this text, and that's just how it's going to be. It's because it's a low-res photo and it doesn't have as much pixels to work with. So you can also mess with these bars, add more detail, add less. See, it kind of pulled in the text a little bit more. And I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to show you what a good quality photo from the start can look like. So say you still need to make this a vector even though it's 300 dpi. This way you can make it whatever size you need. Go under Bitmaps, Outline Trace, Detailed Logo, and this is the end result we'll get for him. This one, I say you'd be fine to use the text that it created. Since you gave it enough information, enough pixels to work with, it did a pretty good job at rendering that. So I'm going to actually say this is okay. It looks great. His eyes are in. The text looks clear. And the great thing about this is now that they're vectored, every piece that makes this photo is its own piece. So if you select your image and you click Control U, or you right click on it and select Ungroup All Objects, now you can grab pieces out if you needed to, because they're all individual pieces. Sorry, I should probably move that original photo. Standard for creating trace outlines, they leave the original photo behind that, so you'll just have to remove that later. But this is the before and the after, before and after. And I was going to show you that these are all individual pieces, so now you could even change the color if you wanted. Go in under Objects, Object Properties. It'll show you the different fills that you can mess with. Let's do like a pink. So now it changed his color. And you can do that for each of these texts too. So you can change him to be a light blue, change that to be a green. It's really cool. You can't do that with a raster image because this is what you're given. This is the only state you can ever have it. But when you convert it to a vector, now you have control. You have control of the colors. You have control of its end outcome by being able to expand it and still having it crisp. If I were to do that to the original photo, you'll see that it gets really hazy. But that's the amazing thing about vectors. You can expand them, you can mess with them. It's really awesome. So that's a really helpful tip for you to know, especially if you get a lot of low-res logos from your customers. Now you have a way around that, and that's great. Okay, here's a good one. What if you have a detailed background and you need to remove an item out of that? So that'll be going back to the original photo we were working with the watermelon. So say instead of having a white background, you had a high detailed photo, but you just wanted to remove a particular piece of that photo. Some ways you can do that is by using the pen tool and actually going in and putting in points and pass. See if I can grab that for you. Here's the pen tool. Going in and putting points and pass. Oops, sorry. And drawing around the photo itself. It'd be kind of like that magnetic lasso tool I just showed you, except for you'd be drawing in the points yourself. But personally, I like to do the masking tool that I show you. Make sure you always make a duplicate, and then you can mask your layer. So click mask, and then you can draw in and out that piece. So you can get detailed in that way and remove and draw in any part that you want. If you had any information, because the tools I showed you today would only work for solid backgrounds because they choose from similar pixels. But this is exactly what I would do. I like to draw in and out my photo. I have a lot more control this way. And this way too, it doesn't forever delete it out. You can always access that layer. So you can see my layer mask is right here. It'll show you the difference between the black to the white. The white is what's drawn in, the black is what's drawn out. So that'd be what I'd recommend to you if you're working with something that has actual detail in the background, to remove the background. Okay, that's kind of just an idea of what to do. Again, you can make a straight line by clicking and holding Shift, and then you can draw a straight line across. It's a really fun, helpful tip. But yeah, that's how I personally would do it. Let's see. I had someone asking about the stamp tool, what other kind of things it's used for. I can kind of explain the stamp tool a little better. So what the stamp tool does is it samples out different parts of your photo so you can draw them into different spots. Sounds a little weird, but it can have its purpose and it can be very helpful. So you just select your stamp tool and you hold Alt and you can sample a part of that piece. Like I showed you earlier, you can draw her hair in different spots by using that tool. And we actually use that to get rid of that white haze. But say you're working at a photography place and you want to maybe spruce up a photo. It works really well for removing blemishes, removing any type of discolorations on the face. So that's something that's really helpful for. So let me zoom in on her real quick. She doesn't really have any blemishes. She's got flawless skin, but let me pretend that she does. So I'm going to just draw something on her face. Look a little silly, but I'll just kind of show you. So there, she has a purple pimple. I don't know why it's purple, but it is. So let's click on the stamp tool, and we're going to want to get rid of that. Personally, I always make a duplicate. So duplicate that layer, and then we're going to draw on her photo. So you select Alt to sample a part of her cheek, and then you can put that over that spot and remove it out. When doing something like this, it's best to work with multiple tools. So I actually also use the healing tool, spot healing brush, and then make it a little more natural. This will pick up texture around that specific area and make it look a little more natural. The stamp tool literally grabs exactly what you clicked on and will make a creation based on that selection. So the healing tool is good to go over that spot again and to smooth it out and make it a little more natural looking. But that is something else that you can use that stamp tool for, or just sampling patterns. If you want a specific pattern in another spot of your photo, you can sample the part that you want and place it in another part of your photo. So it's a really helpful tool. Let's see what else was asked. Sorry, it's kind of hard to read. They're really teeny on my screen. Let's see. So someone's asking, how do I know the resolution of my photo? So say they were sent a photo from a customer and they want to know what kind of DPI they're working with so they can tell if it's a high definition photo or not a high definition photo. So you can actually just do that here in Photoshop. So let's try selecting our girl. And you're going to go under Image, Image Size, and this will show you what this document is made out of. So we actually have 300 DPI in this photo, which is a really good standard. And this also shows you inches how big the photo is. Some people like to work in pixels, so you can change different calculations and it'll show you the different values. I personally work in inches, so this photo is 17 by 11 roughly, and it's 300 DPI. So this is a really good resolution photo, and it's actually fairly large, so that's a really good size to be working with. So that was a really good question, but yeah, it's super simple to find. You just go under Image, Image Size, and that'll show you everything you need to know about the document you're working with. Okay, I'm going to take one more question. So say you were given a low-res photo from a customer, is what they're asking. What do you do to make it better? Honestly, you really can't do anything to make it better. Say you had this girl, she was sent in 72 DPI. You basically get what you work with. In the art world, we say garbage in, garbage out. If she's 72 DPI and she's very pixely looking, you're not going to be able to add value to her. So with working with people, with working with scenery, you want to make sure to get a high definition photo from them. If they do send you a 72 DPI, just let them know, hey, this is a really low res photo. I just want to make sure you know that it might be blurry in the end, and let them know right up the front what they'd be getting in the end result, and ask them maybe if they have a better version of that photo. If it's a logo, you can do something to get the more value out of it, which is what I showed you in Corel. You can trace that logo, that text that they send you, and you can make it vectorized. And that'll allow you to resize it however you need, and it'll be crisp no matter what you do with it. Say you see that a lot of this is lost information because it's 72 DPI, and that's not going to be good enough for your customer. What you can do is kind of fake the system. I'm going to show you, I'm going to copy and paste this real quick. This is the 72 DPI photo. I'm going to paste, oh sorry, he pasted on top of him. Move him. when you're tracing vectors, if you have a 72 dpi, you can force 300 pixels into that photo. That will not make that photo high res when working with a raster photo. What you get is what you get. It'll just basically be blurry in the end. But if you're using it to be a vector piece, it can give the live trace more information to work with. So you can actually maybe even pull out more information than you would have if you would have just done the straight 72 dpi like we did before. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you select that original photo, you want to go under bitmap, and then you're going to convert to bitmap. And this is where you'll throw in the 300 dpi that you want, and then you're say okay. As you can see, it's still a really blurry, really hazy quality photo, but that's okay. We're going to trace it anyway. We're going to go under outline trace, detailed logo, and let's see what it does this time. This can actually cause funny things to happen too, so you got to be careful with doing this. It kind of did. So as you can see, it kind of had this haze around the photo, but the great thing about vectors is these are all individual pieces, so whatever you don't like, you can go in and delete if you wanted to. So I'm going to see if messing with the bars does anything for us. Maybe even less information looks a little better. Okay, I'm going to say something like that. Looks good. And now we're going to ungroup it. You can do Control U or right click on it and do ungroup all. But now we can go in and actually look at the detail of this photo. So I can select this area that I don't like and I can delete it. Select the area and delete it. And you can go through and do that, and you can also go through and change the color too. So say you liked that information, you just wanted it to match that blue we're working with, you can do that as well. The reason it added this haze around it is because we forced that information, the dots, the extra pixels in there, and that can cause a haze around the photo. But as you can see, it gave us more information than the original one did. Before, when we just did the straight 72 dpi, you couldn't see his eyes. So I think I'm actually just going to change this one to match his color. I'm going to go under Object, Object Properties. Oops. Oh, I need to have it selected. Hang on. Where's my fill at? I'll just change it on here. Sorry, I'll just take a second. Let me grab this piece. There we go. Okay, so now we can change so it matches the original. So you're going to click on the eyedropper tool located here and click on the selection that you want. And then you can go through and change the different pieces. So that's another way to do it. But I'll compare the original to the one we just created so you can see the difference. So that's a way around starting out with a low-res photo. I pulled out more detail. You can see his eyes now. And again, like I said, with 72 dpi, I would probably just delete this text out and put in your own, because that'd be the best way to do it. A lot of times those 72 dpi's just doesn't do the end result justice, and you would just put in your own. Yeah, it's a really handy tool. And by throwing in that extra DPI, you can pull out more pieces of his information. And you can even maybe originally start with that just 72 conversion like we did, and just pull out the pieces that you like of the one that we just created. So that way you have a more crisp end result. Because the one where we added more pixels kind of looks hazy, and I'm not a big fan of it. But we can take out pieces that add to the photo a little better, and it'll look a little nicer. So that's a way around low-res photos. Again, you can't really get around people and scenery. You just have to make sure you get a good quality photo from your customer from the start. But logos, you have vector as an alternative, which is a really awesome thing. Okay, well, that concludes this tutorial. I hope you were able to take away a lot of good information today. If you have any questions that I was unable to answer in this tutorial, you can email the sublimation at JDS Industries and we can answer your questions.